birthday! Good afternoon from across the pond. There's probably two things you're noticing right now. One is that I don't have that crackly noise in the background anymore. The second is that my beard is growing in beautifully. Because, as you can recall, it is No Shave November. That's right. This beard is gonna get bushier. I mean, a lot bushier. Just letting you know now, today's video is kinda heavily laden with pictures, so be prepared. The first picture I want to bring to your attention is this sign on the back of a maintenance van in my apartment complex that says, "Caution, this vehicle is restricted to 67 miles per hour. 67 miles per hour? That's not slow! I mean, let's be real here. You go 67 miles an hour on the Greenway back home, and you get pulled over by the cops. Not to mention that another 21 miles per hour will get a DeLorean fully equipped with a flux capacitor to travel back in time. But that's just one of the merry differences between being in England and being in the States. I also want to tell you about a project that I'm currently undertaking with my girlfriend Lauren. We both recently sort of realized that we were spending a lot of time indoors, and when you spend a lot of time indoors, it kind of starts to affect you a little bit. And generally, I think sitting in one place for prolonged periods of time is absolutely not good for you as a human being. And yes, I am aware that a lot of people do that every day, and it's called work. Anyway, I suggested to Lauren that we make sure we go out every day and observe something. It doesn't have to be a radical observation. You don't have to find nirvana. Must not make Kurt Cobain joke. You just have to notice something new that you wouldn't have otherwise noticed sitting at your desk or on your couch or wherever. I was just totally scratching myself on camera. The rule is, though, is what you're observing can't really concern you. In other words, I can't make an observation about the splendiferousness. There, I said it, the splendiferousness of my beard. And so, every day, we send each other a report of our observation for that day. And so, I went out to the bus stop to try and observe things. Why did I choose to stand at the bus stop? Well, that gets down to my observation for today. And I'm gonna warn you, it's kind of a geography nerd observation, which I will argue is the best kind. Human beings in general have set standing spaces. I mean, we have lines, or queues if you're English. We of course have bus stops, and counters like at McDonald's. But in general, there aren't a lot of socially acceptable standing places. And I admit, this is kind of an obvious observation. But it's really an idea you can play with. It also got me thinking about the utility of space, and how a space is utilized determines whether or not it's socially acceptable to do certain things there. For example, people generally don't stand in front of gates, because the purpose of a gate is to let things in and out. And if you're standing there, things can't get in or out. So, upon thinking about these things, I decided to go have myself a little standing revolution. Think of it as Jonathan Trineri's one-man tea party against the tyranny of spatial social norms. So, I went and stood in a lot of places where I wouldn't normally stand. For example, in a parking spot, next to a sign that says, "I can't park there." And of course, next to the very welcoming barbed wire fence. In fact, I think for the rest of my observations, I'm going to go stand in places people wouldn't normally stand. With the exception of the middle of the road. I'm not going to stand there. There's a reason people don't. Despite being told by my uncle from a very young age to go play in traffic. I mean, seriously, Uncle Gene, you told me this when I was like 3 years old. I'm surprised my parents let you babysit. Well, I've been rambling on long enough, so I guess I'll turn it over to Limey News for American Chaps. Today on Limey News for American Chaps, we're going to talk about a subject you're all very familiar with. Sesame Street. Creation of Jim Henson, one of the most brilliant men of all time. I mean, we're talking about a show here that has taught several generations of kids. And speaking of awesome birthdays in November, Sesame Street, also born in November. But the news is, there's no more Sesame Street in Britain. We're talking about a show here that had all these little British children saying Z instead of Z. And everybody says Z over here. So that's one hell of an impact. So what gives? Why isn't Sesame Street over in Britain anymore? Michael Carrington, head of children's programming at the BBC, says it's just simply outdated. He also cited that there weren't very many puppet shows around anymore. Wait, so you're telling me that the country that invented Punch and Judy doesn't want puppets? I say that's horseshit! If given the chance between CGI and puppets, I mean even really, really good CGI, I'm still going to go with the puppets. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I will never raise children in Britain. No Sesame Street. This ends the programming for the broadcasting day. So go watch some Sesame Street and go stand in a strange place. At the same time. If you can. JT. It's Guy Fawkes Day and I have high potency explosives.